Ba-ba. Okay, we're live on platforms. Let's put a little bit of music on again and wait for people to come on.
I'm not a joyride, a hit and run. I thought I loved you and you thought I was fun. I'm moving on down the road. Watch me as I go, watch me as I go. Should I look both ways before you cross me, baby? 'Cause I don't break for boys. I'm moving on. I'm moving on. Got nothing left to say. Let's be on my way. Best of luck. I'm moving on. I'm moving on. I got a new love. He runs for miles. 67 fastback. Oh, it's just my style. We're headed down the road. Just enjoy the show. Watch me as I go. Should look both ways before you cross me, baby, 'cause I don't break for boys. I'm moving on. I'm moving on. Got nothing left to say. Let's be on my way. Best of luck. I'm moving on. 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 Should look both ways before you cross me, baby, 'cause I don't break for boys. I'm moving on. Got nothing left to say. Let's be on my way. Best of luck. I'm moving on. Got nothing left to say. Let's be on my way. Best of luck. I'm moving on. Got nothing left to say. Let's be on my way. Best of luck. I'm moving on. I'm moving on.
All right. It's so funny how certain music can trigger different memories. Hearing that song each time takes me back to doing my Google I/O video. Pretty sure it was the I/O video because in editing, when you're going through and editing something over and over again as you cut it and get it closer to being ready to go, you end up watching it about 1,000 times, probably more. And so that just gets stuck in your head as it's associated directly with that video and that song. They go together as like a cool travel montage. So hopefully doing another travel montage for Google Next. Talk about that maybe a little bit if you guys are interested. And let's get started here. Let me just pull up the chat in case anybody wants to say anything live. Let's get started. Welcome back to Tech for Work, where I discuss the things that I found interesting in the tech and business world this week. My name is Jesse Nolan. I'm your host and the founder of tabGeeks. It's been a few weeks, so I guess it's the things that I found interesting in the last few weeks of tech and business, etc. Been a little busy. Celebrated my daughter's birthday at Disneyland. She got the whole princess treatment, bippity boppity boutique done up, etc. And she just lit up and absolutely loved it. And it was the cutest thing I've ever seen. So, and my son came along for the ride, and he got the prince get up, and so he got a shield and a sword, and they put some magical glitter in his hair as well, and he was very happy. So it is pricey, but I do recommend it, and it really brings home the magic of what is Disneyland and why it's so incredible for the kids, and just getting all done up like that, and then turning around and being able to go and meet princesses and princes, and it's their minds were just blown all over the room, and it was so cool to watch that and see that happen in real time. And of course I filmed it because I'm a video guy. That's what I do. I film things. So at some point, I suppose maybe I'll make a video of that for them to have as part of their graduation video or something along those lines. We generate a lot more content than we used to, certainly growing up when we were kids. So on one hand, it's great that our kids will be able to look back. On the other hand, I kind of apologize in advance because good lord, there's going to be a lot of archive. So if you ever want to make a video, there's going to be a lot to go through. Some other things that are going on behind the scenes that have been keeping me busy that I can't really talk about just yet, and a whole bunch of new content. Personal accomplishment for me and the channel. I crossed 100,000 hours of watch time on YouTube. Apparently, that's like a big deal or something. I guess I should turn the YouTube light on here. I got my. There we go. Now it's on. Shows that I'm live. Not really. It's not connected to anything. It's just a light that they sent me. Not for crossing 100,000. They sent it to me as part of being a up and coming YouTuber or something to that, something along those lines, essentially. And yeah, 100,000 hours of watch time is a lot of time. It's like having a concert with an Ed Sheeran or Taylor Swift size stadium for an hour, which is a lot of freaking people. So it's a little bit crazy that my content has been out there, but apparently something is working. So I am very proud of that. And thank you to everybody who helped me reach that milestone. The next milestone I'm going for is 10,000 followers. So buck up. It's going to be a long show. We'll get there. We'll get to the 10,000 followers. And if you love what I'm doing, I'd appreciate it if it with your friends so that I could get there sooner. The Super Bowl was this past Sunday, and however you feel about sports, every year I love watching just the Super Bowl. I watch some other games here and there, not really any kind of a diehard fan. I'm a Patriots fan, so we had our good 20 years there, and that's over. And now somebody else gets to have the limelight for a bit. But it always amazes me the whole massive production that is the Super Bowl is a masterclass in massive scale IT business level technology, enterprise level technology. From the Wi-Fi in the stadium to the networks that are producing and broadcasting, all the way through to the social media teams that are cutting and posting and editing afterwards. It's a magnificent dance. It's an incredible, just collaboration amongst everybody in order to make it happen, and it's done live. And I've seen a couple of articles and videos over the years of how they pull this off, and I believe Wired did a whole article on this several years ago where they were talking about the hundreds of miles of fiber optic cable that runs through, or maybe it was thousands of miles, and it's just insane the amount of gear that has to go into making this work, the amount of man hours, the amount of planning, the amount of work on the day of. So hats off to all the IT folks and all the other folks that are involved in making that happen. It's really incredible. If you've never looked into how that works, go check it out. I haven't seen any numbers for this year, but in past years, they have used an increasingly higher amount of data on the network every year. So it used to be it was a couple hundred gigabytes, and then it was like 1 terabyte, and then it was 11 terabytes, and it just keeps going up from there because more and more people are streaming live and they're taking more pictures and uploading. And obviously the production teams on site are uploading now. You have lots of different services that are all producing and uploading their streams. So it's really insane, absolutely insane. And the commercials are always great as well. And actually, I wanted to highlight one Google Pixel. Damn it, made me tear up. They had a Dream Job commercial, which you should watch it. And there's like just a 1 second switch that they do at the end that just got me as a father. So I definitely recommend you go watch that. And well done, Google Pixel, made by Google team. That was a beautiful commercial. All right. In case you missed it, there's been a couple of things that I have been working on here for videos. Not as many as I would have liked, but it comes, it goes. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's a little. So this was a slower couple of weeks here. But yesterday, Ubiquiti announced the Superlink, which is their new IoT wireless transmitter. It's the Superlink gateway. Superlink is their new IoT platform. And there were no sensors that were released with it, unfortunately. I really would have preferred them to have rolled out some sensors that I could at least test the 2 kilometer range, which, I mean, obviously is line of sight and it's on lots of different factors, but to be able to have a sensor, smoke detection, siren, etc., 2 kilometers away from a single device is going to be a game changer for a lot of my folks that are out in the woods and in the mountains and in the sticks that don't have excellent connectivity or haven't built out massive network backbones infrastructure in their properties. This will be incredible for them. And so I wanted to be able to test that. But the only thing I was able to test was the existing all-in-one sensors. Ubiquiti has or has had for a long time now, these Bluetooth low energy all in one sensors. I've got one over there on my rack just in case any of my kids open the door or whack it or whatever. I can tell if they're in here and come running to make sure that they don't break anything. And, it does temperature and it does motion and it does all sorts of different amazing things. And that was kind of like version 1.0, and version 2.0 is the complete reinvention of how they're doing this and a whole build out of the sensor lineup. And I'm extremely excited to see them doing it. Although I did just get into a fight with somebody on Facebook because they were saying that it was a commenter, and take it with a grain of salt because commenters are jerks a lot of times. Called me another clueless person that's never heard of Home Assistant, Z-Wave, or Zigbee. And I was like, I have heard of them. I didn't include them here because not relevant. So yeah, I'm also a smart home nerd. I'm also deep into Matter and what was before chip and all of the evolution of that, as you've probably heard me talk about on this show before. So yes, there are those things. This is not that. This is, if you're in the Ubiquiti ecosystem, this is going to be an amazing enterprise level build out of business class sensors for monitoring high end business environments, extreme cases, environments where you need to invest in this infrastructure. Z-Wave isn't going to go 2 kilometers, people. It's just not. Even with Z-Wave repeaters, they suck. They're not that great. The whole ecosystem is terrible. So if Ubiquiti with their Superlink can actually manage to build an ecosystem that works with your existing equipment and then allows you to build out this infrastructure where it works well with a system that you're familiar with without licensing fees, like I'm all here for it. So Ubiquiti, get to work. Let's see those sensors. That'll be awesome. One other bonus of Superlink here, and you should go watch my video because I go much more into it and I give a behind the scenes tour of a craft brewery where I installed this, is that the range of the Bluetooth low energy sensor, this guy that I mentioned before on my rack, apologies for the podcast listeners, you'll just have to picture it. And the range from the Superlink gateway is significantly increased. I have literally had issues connecting the all-in-one sensors at client devices 5 feet or 10 feet away through one wall to the access points, which is how they used to connect on the previous earlier than Wi-Fi 7 lineup access points. It used to be the Bluetooth low energy, the BLE radio was in the access points. Now it's moving to the Superlink gateway. And it used to be that I just had a very difficult time staying connected or getting it to connect to even a close by access point. Whereas with this, I went 50, 60, 100 feet away and it was still connected. And it did drop off over time, but I was very impressed with that. So go watch the video. It's a good one. On to the next video that I released also is a showdown between Chrome OS and Windows laptops. I went out and I bought the Dell XPS 13, the one with the trackpad that doesn't distinguish when it starts and stops, and a lot of people hate that. I actually love it. I think it's a gorgeous design. You get over that real fast because your hand just goes down where it's supposed to on the trackpad and you just use like a regular computer. I haven't found myself falling off the trackpad when using it past the first day. So I'm going to do a full review on that as well because I got thoughts. I love it. It is running the new Qualcomm, what did I call this? The Qualcomm Ultra Micro something. Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite processor as opposed to an Intel processor. And I got that one in particular because I've heard good things about the performance. Obviously, I'm on my Mac and my Mac is also ARM based, which this is as well. And I wanted to test that out. The short version is Chrome OS from zero, from like totally never turned on to google.com. 1 minute, 30 seconds. Windows, same thing, from zero, updates, etc., getting to google.com in any browser. I used Edge because that was on there and I didn't have to download it. The goal was to get to Windows. 29 minutes was how long that took. So That's ridiculous. Go watch that video. It's a good one. My reaction is rather hilarious, and I really needed a coffee by the time I was done with that video, and I got one at the end and was able to wrap up in a more composed manner because that was brutal. And then I also did a video going into the details of getting started with Chrome OS management. Had Brian Kim on as a guest, and we went through that. And that has been, a good video as well that a lot of folks already have thanked me for. So I'm glad to hear that it's helping people. All right, on to the news. Breaking news: Google I/O has been teased. Google Next is, well, next up. Cue all the next puns, as I like to do every year. Google Next is April, what, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, something like that, that week. Google I/O traditionally tends to be about a month later in May. We don't know what the date is because what Google likes to do every year is they create puzzles so that you can figure out the date. Sorry. If you like puzzles, this one is a fun one. Go to the website is io.google.com/2025/puzzle. And I'll, of course, of course, include the link in the show notes. But it's a puzzle and you have to work your way through until you can find out what the date of the conference is, or you could wait 2 hours and it'll be on because somebody has probably already solved it by now, given that it was announced, a half an hour ago or so. But the breakdown between the two different conferences, the differences between the two different conferences is Google Next is more business focused and enterprise. It's still development. There's still a lot of, it's for developers. It's a cloud development conference, but it also has Google Workspace, of course, and some things that I can't tell you about yet, but very soon that I know about that are coming that are very exciting. But IO is more focused on hardware, Android consumer development. And so they definitely overlap in certain areas. And Google's even got as far as using IO as a platform to announce new things for, well, Gemini, because every chance they get, they're announcing new things for Gemini, which I have an update on that later on in the show as well. So stay tuned. But always a good time, always a good show, both of them. So I'm looking forward to attending both. I will, of course, be at Google Next, and I am preparing for that already and have some very interesting ideas, a couple of sponsored videos, and I've been told that I'm going to get some behind the scenes access this year. So I look forward to bringing that to all of you in a future video. So make sure that you're subscribed if you're not already so that you don't miss that. And then Google I/O, we'll see what they're planning, and then I'll plan for whatever I can do around. Moving on, there are a bunch of comments going by. Hopefully you don't know those. Backblaze. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but they're a cloud storage service provider. They've released their year-end drive stats. They do this every year where they release statistics, analytics on their drive failure rates. And this is usually of interest to folks who work in data centers or have, doing research around NASs or having lots of hard drives in a NAS or like an MVR, etc., to find out who's got the best performing drives. If you want the full data, they actually release the entire data set for free. I'll include the link to the blog in the show notes, and in there at the bottom is a link to the entire data set. You can download that and then upload it to your favorite AI source to pull your own insights and analytics out of it. It looks like there was no drive that had a 0% failure rate this year. So all drives had at least a some percentage failure rate, as opposed to other years where there were some that had a 0%. So, but it does look like there were Seagate 12 terabyte drives that had the worst failure rates of 8% throughout the year. There were lots of other Seagate drives that performed fantastically. So don't take that as I'm never buying Seagate drives that are unreliable, because that's not the case. I actually personally am running all Seagate drives in my rack and I have no problems with them, have had no problems with them, love them. So, this is obviously at aggregate. They're using 400,000 drives a year or a quarter. I don't know which it was. So they're going through a lot of drives, and it's for the smaller businesses. It's mostly just a guide of who tends to be the most reliable and have the best drives of the year versus those who don't. Moving on, Boom Arrow, who I talked about, I think, in my last show, where they had broken the sound barrier flying supersonic on their plane, has announced an update that they are calling Boomless Cruise. And what that means is that the planes are no longer going to make an audible sound. Now, I say audible because you make a sound when you break the sound barrier. It goes boom. We've all heard it, or we've heard it. We've either heard it in person or heard it in the movies. Top Gun, sure, and they're constantly breaking the sound barrier. Fun fact, the boom is continuous. I don't know if you know this. This is like one of my favorite random facts, if not my favorite random fact, to pull out of my back pocket. The boom is not when they break the barrier, it goes boom. It's taking off, it gets up to speed, boom. No, the boom is continuous. As they're flying, that boom just goes on. So no matter where they're flying over, if they're flying over populated areas, they're going to anybody who's below the plane as it flies overhead is going to hear that boom. Now, it's going to depend on how high you are, what altitude you're at, as to how loud and how much you feel that boom. Do feel it because it's a boom. In fact, they used to have back in the day, I forget which airport it was. It was in New York somewhere. When the Concorde would fly in, maybe it was Brooklyn, somewhere in that area, JFK. When they would fly over the houses, the windows would shake to the extent of sometimes they would break and get blown out. Now, our windows today are much stronger, but back then, this was a recurring problem and one of the biggest complaints against those planes. And it would happen wherever because the boom is continuous, and that kind of just I was 30 years old I think when I learned that, and I carry it with me to this day because um, it's such an interesting fact that it's a continuous sound. But moving on from that, essentially what the boomless cruise has done is they have found a way to make that boom, the sonic sound, as you're flying, but to do it at an altitude and in a way where when it goes downward, when the sound wave travels downward, it actually bounces back up before it reaches the populated area, before it reaches, people down below. And so the biggest complaint for these planes, other than, some of the Concords breaking up in flight and exploding, other than that problem, which hopefully they've solved as well, there's not much left for them to say, okay, this is a problem. You can't do this because it's going to disrupt people every time this takes off and lands and anywhere it flies. So I look forward to hopefully regulations allowing for supersonic flight to come back because I very much would like to be able to go New York to London in 3 hours or whatever it is, or California to New York in half an hour or whatever. It's I think it like that's the travel time for many of these flights. Um, of course, SpaceX and Elon has proved the fact that you can take off in Starship one day eventually and fly up and then back down in like 20 minutes and travel the entire planet. But this, I think, is going to be more economical, probably over the long run, than Starship, or at least something that people are more willing to try in the more near term than Starship, given that it's not going to space and sitting on a massive Empire State Building tower of rocket fuel. So I guess the future is bright. Stay tuned. I'll leave a link to the founder of Boom Arrow's tweet thread on this. He is very forthcoming and shares tons of information on Twitter. Sorry, X. And I very much enjoy his stuff and enjoyed watching them break the sound barrier and break the record. And I'm looking forward to them building out their full size aircraft. Moving on from there, during the Super Bowl, Starlink Beta announced that they're opening up their beta to everybody, including folks that are not on T-Mobile. This is a T-Mobile Starlink beta, but they're opening it up for anybody on AT&T and T and Verizon as well. Any carrier is going to be able to test this. As long as you have no cell service, it will reach out to the satellites. Obviously, you need to have the right software on your phone, so update your iPhone, update your Android phones, and it uses the regular cellular modem to connect to the satellites. And it's a test. It's early. It's not going to be like your cell phone that to the tower that is, half a mile away and is constantly connected. It's their satellites going ahead, and you might have to wait for the satellite to pass overhead or the next one to come before you can connect. But if you're up in the mountains with zero chance of connectivity, you now have connectivity. Now, it may not be ongoing, it may not be, continuous, as I mentioned here, but you still have a way to reach out and communicate with people. And, every time I talk about Starlink or I talk about this, uh, there's always folks that are like, I'm going into the wild because I want to disconnect from reality and humanity and don't want to be able to have a connection with anybody. It's like, yeah, well, if you fall and you're dying, you really want to be able to call for help. Or if, God forbid, there's another massive wildfire like there was, the cell towers went down. There was no cell service, even though you were in the middle of a massive disaster and needed to get the emergency alerts that told you when you needed to get back up and haul ass out of there because the fire was spreading at an insane rate or there was a new fire, etc. So this is fantastic, and it's only going to get better from here. As I'm fond of saying, similar to MKBHD, who says this as well. This is the worst it's ever going to be. Right? We have made tremendous progress over the years, and this is just going to continue getting better from here. And I'm so excited for it. Okay, I'm going to pause for a drink. Moving on. Ubiquiti has opened up registrations for its new professional integrator program. It costs $1,000 a year, and it gives you access to annual training, email access to a Ubiquiti ambassador who can help you plan deployments, figure out your needs, and so on. And you get priority phone support across all of your sites. This is quite a good deal for anybody who is a professional Ubiquiti installer and has lots of Ubiquiti sites. You're going to be able to get better support when you need it. And I don't know if they're doing any kind of like professional ordering system or kickback or anything like that, but I imagine probably. But this is early access, so we'll probably see more as time goes on. If you've heard more about it, let me know. I am digging in, and I asked them to give me access to it, but given that it's $1,000 a year and meant for people who are professional installers doing this all day every day, I don't know that they're going to let me in, but we shall see. Back to talking about space stuff, Blue Origin has been on a tear, and they nailed their latest flight to space and back again. And then also on their New Shepard flight, which is, I think, their 29, 30, 39, one or the other, 24th flight, I think it was. They actually simulated lunar gravity in orbit, and they achieved this by spinning their rocket fast enough so that it would achieve that level of gravity. And the reason why this is super cool is A, now you're on lunar gravity, but B, there are experiments that people are doing to see how technology and plants and different scientific breakthroughs will happen and will be affected by being in lunar gravity, and you don't have to go to the moon in order to test it. So I think they had it running for about 2 minutes, and they had a whole bunch of experiments in there that they were able to simulate lunar gravity for. So link in the show notes to that as well. And speaking of amazing space companies, one of my favorites, Rocket Lab, their founder and CEO opened up recently on a podcast. His name is Sir Peter Beck. He is one of those super genius types that was literally building rockets and engines in his shed in his backyard, and rocket powered bikes, and the man just lives, breathes, and is everything rockets. And his story is phenomenal and fantastic. If you haven't heard it, I definitely recommend listening to this and looking more into his story and learning more about Rocket Lab. They are essentially the SpaceX of the smaller smaller rocket launch space, similar to the original size of the Falcon 1 from SpaceX. Falcon. Yeah, Falcon 9 is their heavy lift rocket and what they have been running for the last 7 years. But the Falcon 1 was much smaller. And Rocket Lab has picked up the mantle where they left off and has been launching these much smaller rockets. I recently got to see one in person at the LA Space Center, where they had a actual flown Rocket Lab rocket in the museum in place of, and to kind of make us feel better about the fact that the actual space shuttle Endeavour, which is there, is currently under renovations because they're building it into the first ever launch ready position, and they're building a whole building around it, and a new exhibit, and awesome, and it's going to be awesome, and I very much look forward to seeing that. But it's all put away and wrapped up in mothballs at the moment, and so we get to see Rocket Lab rockets, and so that was pretty cool. The thing is tiny. It's less than 40 feet long. I believe it fits in a shipping container. I was standing by the engines, and it's really only 5-6 feet wide, maybe less. So much smaller, but theoretically they're going to be able to launch much more frequently, and they're launching also from two different hemispheres. They're launching from New Zealand as well as from the US, from Virginia, and I love that company. I think they're doing great things. Okay, onward into the world of Google. It's been a little while since I have done some workspace updates, and there is other news before that. Google, on one of their blogs, their security blog, they have a new how-to guide on defending against malware and phishing attacks. I will leave the link to this down below. But they have a couple of best practices here, and it's always good to read these and see, what Google is thinking and how the best way to utilize the things that you're already paying for in order to stay safe. Obviously, you have AI defenses that automatically take care of these things for you, such as 9.9% of spam. A lot of the phishing attempts that come in, when it's coming in through Gmail and it's delivered as an email, a lot of that is taken care of, and they use what's called a security sandbox to actually open a lot of these in a secure environment and test them, and will report back if it finds something, and then you can take action if somebody did after the fact, if somebody did manage to open it before it was caught, etc. You also have enhanced safe browsing mode in Gmail, which lets Gmail take even further steps to check emails for harmful content before delivering them to users. You can choose which browsing protection level in Chrome you want to deploy to your users so that you can protect them from visiting unsafe sites. There's also advanced URL filtering to block categories of dangerous and risky websites. And of course, Chrome Enterprise Core, which is their free version of their Chrome Enterprise Premium, which gives you controls over what folks are able to do using the Chrome browser. And then, of course, on the Chrome OS side, there's a couple of features or a bunch of features that you can use and activate in order to stay safe. Then on the login side, you've got passkeys, you've got two-factor authentication, multi-party approval for sensitive actions, some really, really good points in here. So I definitely recommend taking a look at this blog post. It's a good one and has a lot of links in it that you should also click on to learn more about all of the things that I just mentioned. On to Sheets. Ben Collins, if you're not familiar with him, has been a rock star in the community for a long time, and he's completely focused on Google Sheets. He has a blog with a lot of really, really useful tips and tricks and ideas. It says here he's an educator and GD Google developer, helping you navigate the world of spreadsheets and AI. And this article is 11 incredibly useful URL tricks for Google Sheets. So it turns out that if you change the URL of the sheet that you're editing, you can change how it behaves with certain things. So you can change how it is shared, and the link sharing format, how it's previewed. You can convert the sheet into a basic HTML page. You can open it up as a template, make a copy, export as a PDF, all just by changing up what goes into the URL. So take a look at this. I will leave the link to it in the show notes, of course. Next up is Notebook LM. You've heard me talk about this a bunch of times. It has gone GA. Notebook LM Plus is the version that is included with any paid license of Workspace, I believe business standard and above, if I'm not mistaken. And it's incredible. It's a fantastic research tool. I use it on the regular to help me with a lot of my scripts and my videos and a lot of projects that I'm working on. Essentially allows you to take the Gemini model and have it only train on and answer on the data that you give it. So say you have, I don't know, 10 videos and 10 articles and 10 blog posts and 10 PDFs about what you're working on, the project that you're on or whatnot, and you want to be able to query it and questions on it and find information about it. Instead of uploading that to a single prompt, you can upload it to your notebook. And then that is a continuing conversation where you can have with it about that information and update, add new sources to it, etc. And it's really been super helpful to work with and generate, just basic getting started scripts for myself, as well as some of the other projects that I've been working on. And what Notebook LM Plus does is it drastically increases the amount of sources that you can have. It's up from like 30 or 50 to 300, I believe. And you can have far more prompts and conversations, and it just opens it up to make it really, really useful in ways that you can't hit the limits that you would hit on the free version, which I was kind of shocked were so low when it rolled out. And I was very happy to see how much they increased those limits by when they released it for Notebook LM Plus. Google also rolled out Gemini 2.0 to everyone, and I have to say, it's finally there. It's finally gotten really good. Gemini has, like many other things, Google starts out slow, not always has it right in the beginning, but they always get there. Google is very iterative, and eventually they just take off like a rocket, and they really have here. And Gemini 2.0 is incredibly powerful. So if you haven't seen about it, I'll leave a link to the developer blog in the show notes, and you can read up about all of the different elements there. Needless to say, don't sleep on Gemini. It is finally awesome. I'm using it in both Workspace and is on the daily, and I absolutely love it. Speaking of Gemini, I don't know if you heard about the whole DeepSeek thing, but essentially there was a um, company out of China called DeepSeek, sorry, DeepSeek, that claimed that they created a very powerful and capable AI model for significantly less than the big boys. Google and OpenAI and others are saying that it costs billions of dollars to run these models or to make these models, or hundreds of millions of dollars. And here comes this Chinese company and said that they did it for $5 million. Turns out they kind of cheated. And they trained it based on querying OpenAI's existing models. So they weren't starting from scratch. Is that cheating? Maybe, sorta. Yeah, kinda. Um, Turns out it's not even that much of accomplishment, because a bunch of folks at Stanford turned around and did the same thing, but for $50. So things are getting really crazy here. Things are getting really good, really fast, and starting to get really cheap. But I'm here to say no, the AI craze is not ending. The stock market tanked. People were freaking out. This is the end. Game over. This whole AI thing, they don't need to build these incredible, powerful, massive, crazy data centers and have insane valuations for these companies, because it's game over. We've cracked it. We've hit it, and everybody's going to be able to have cheap and amazing, powerful AI models. So that it does have a little bit of truth to it, in that the prices are significantly coming down, and that it is much easier and simpler to run these things locally and yourself. The big, more powerful models are still going to need those massive data centers and massive investments by companies. And Google, as well as Microsoft, as well as Meta, have all announced that this year they are investing in some places more than ever to build out their own data centers and continue investing in this space. Google is putting in about $75 billion in investments this year. Microsoft has committed to spending $80 billion. There's the OpenAI $500 billion Stargate investment, which may or may not come to pass. I guess we'll have to stay tuned and wait to see what happens on that. Drama, 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 of course, because OpenAI and the government and Trump and Elon and all of that is, high school or even younger drama, 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 drama. I love it. It's very entertaining. I read up on it. I'm not going to bore you with all of the details. You can ask me about it in the chat or on Twitter. But it's just, yeah, crazy amounts of drama. But the thing that you should take away from this is that the AI craze is not ending. It's only continuing to accelerate. They're only building this out at some point, and we are approaching that point where you are going to have the ability to spin up and start using better and better models for much money is already basically here. And so you're going to have a lot more applications using this and providing services for much cheaper that are far more capable than ever before. That being said, I recently was talking to a contact of mine, and we were talking about how there are companies that are using AI to replace call center agents, for example, and yet they're charging more for the platform than it costs to have the people do it. So we're not there yet. It's not that cheap. Companies are still charging crazy amounts of money for this stuff, but we are getting there. Last thing I think that I have here on Gemini is that if you missed it, Gemini is rolling out to businesses whether they like it or not. And what the announcement was there is, and I guess I have more information on this because I have a workspace update later, is that Gemini for Workspace specifically was a license that you had to pay for. It was $20 or $30 a month. You could pay for only the meeting stuff. You could pay for only the security stuff. You could pay for all of it all together. They got rid of all of that. Now it's just your existing Google Workspace licenses, as long as your business standard or above, now has Gemini, full stop. It's all included. Not all. There are a couple of gotchas here and there that are specific to the individual applications that are only going to be available on the more plus or higher tiers here. But the kicker is that all of the Workspace licenses are going up in price. Now, if you're in a long-term contract, 2, 3 years, whatever, commitment with Google, they don't go up until you are at the end of that contract standard. That's how these contracts work. Anytime Google raises prices, it does not go into effect for your company until you are up for renewal. Also, I haven't actually seen what the enterprise pricing is yet, so still waiting to hear about that. If you have seen it or can tell me where I can see it, let me know, and I'll go and dig into it, see how much that's going to change for the larger enterprise customers. But for the business folks, that's already changed and rolled out. And for the enterprise folks, The integration, I think, is already rolling out. I need to look into more of the pricing on that and see where we are. Um, but the thing that I was going to mention about this is the fact that many businesses were upset that this was being rolled out to everybody, whether you like it or not. And you didn't really have a choice in the matter. And it turns out you do have a choice. It's just you have to literally ask for it. If you get in touch with Google Workspace support, you say, "Hey, this is happening. I don't like it. I need it. Need a way to disable it." They have a toggle that they can give you access to in order to disable it for your business. I don't recommend doing that. I think that you should instead maybe pause it with this feature, or just start training everybody on how to use it, because I really, and this is not hype, firmly believe that AI, generative AI, especially in a tool like Workspace, is a force multiplier. And from all of the folks that I'm talking to that are actually adopting it and using it, they're just getting so much more done. And I am working on a video, which I am tentatively calling "What the hell is AI actually for?" where I go into examples of my regular workflows and where I'm using AI and what I'm using it for and how I'm using it, because there's not enough specific examples out. Everybody is very general about this. And I want to be able to say, yes, after this video is done, I'm going to take it and put it into a transcription tool, which uses OpenAI's one of their models, I forget which one, to transcribe the entire thing and then export it as a SRT for me to be able to have subtitles. And then I'm going to take that entire transcript and I'm going to throw it into Gemini, and I'm going to say, create a YouTube worthy title and description. And sometimes I agree with what it outputs and sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's a starting point and sometimes it nails it and I just go with what it gives me. Um, to each their own. Your mileage may vary, but it is saving me personally a ton of time. And I'm looking to show off a lot more things like that of where and when I reach out to Gemini and what I've been using it for, as well as the other AIs that are out there. So stay tuned for that. Um, Last thing on Google, before I get to Google Workspace stuff, is if you're interested in the history of how things came to be with Google and Google products, which I always am, I think it's a fascinating history and fascinating things to learn from there. Google Photos was founded by somebody who had a failing startup and then was bought by Google and pivoted into Google Photos. His name is David Lieb. He was a member of Y Combinator. This is an interview from Y Combinator, and it's a fascinating story of how they went from almost nearly failing and shutting everything down to building a massive tool that's used by 2 billion people around the world and is where I store my photos, and it's incredibly powerful and I absolutely love it. So oh, I forgot about one last thing to mention here. Google, obviously, as much as they're giving us tools to be productive, wants to give us things to do with our newfound time, because they've built in Brick Breaker, the classic game, Block Breaker, into Google Search. So if you go to Google Search and you type in Block Breaker, there goes your productivity. You'll be able to spend the rest of the day playing Brick Breaker in the browser. You're welcome. Sorry, not sorry. Okay, last thing to wrap this up here, because the show is getting a bit long in the tooth, is finally some workspace updates, because I haven't done those anytime recently, and I'm still debating whether I want to keep them in the show or I want to break them out as their own individual thing. So if you have feelings on that, please drop a comment down below and let me know what you think. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about is breaking news. As of today, Google Chat can finally now do polls. So that's going to be rolling out shortly, is the ability to create a poll in Google Chat and have people respond to the poll. Where do you want to go for happy hour? What do you want to do on Friday instead of, going to a bar and happy hour? Where should we go for lunch? You're going to be able to do those and more important topics of polls in Google Chat. Of course, include the link to the announcement down below. This is available to all Workspace customers that have enabled chat apps in their domain, Workspace individual subscribers, and users with personal Google accounts. And it looks like it is completely available now. So you are planning your lunch, or if you're on the East Coast and you're planning your dinner, or whenever you're listening to this, you can try /poll and get a poll in there to poll your coders. So it's about damn time, Google. That's all I'm going to say on that. Also, if you live in Google Sheets, you're going to absolutely love this update. Google Sheets is now way faster. They last year doubled the calculation of speed in Google Sheets, and they're only improving on that further. So today, pasting data is now up to 50% faster when you're pasting from one spreadsheet to another. You're going to be able to filter conditions that can be set up to 50% faster than before. And my personal favorite, spreadsheets now load existing data up to 30% faster. If you're one of those folks that's worked with a very, very large spreadsheet, this adds up over time. So this is very exciting. Um, You can dig into the details here. It is available, let's see here, to all Google Workspace customers, Workspace individual subscribers, and users with personal accounts, and it is available now. So go refresh your spreadsheet and see how fast it loads. What else we got on here? Notebook LM is now GA. I mentioned that already, so we're not going to talk about that. Google Vault now supports Gemini, which is a big step, especially when you're forcing Gemini on all companies to use it. You want those who are paying for Vault to still be able to peek in and do things like e-discovery, which is very important to see, what people are using Gemini for. And sometimes it's really important to get that information and that data out and do those investigations. So going to be able to search and responses with a number of answers, such as users and date, to quickly refine the search. Searches can be across groups of users or by OU, which is organizational units, up to 5,000 in size. You're going to be able to export conversations in an XML format for the above searches via the UI or API. So more information on that if you are interested. And then, yeah, the last thing on there was talking about, and I'll include a link to this because there's a lot more information in this than I've seen before. It goes into details of all of Gemini features, AI features being integrated into Workspace Business and Enterprise plans, specifically what's available where, and lots of good information in here, as well as links to all of how to do the different things that your folks are now going to have access to. So if you're creating a how-to guide and training notes on this, you're going to want to refer to this document, this link. So, all right, that is all for this week. Thank you for coming along on another episode of Tech for Work. Lots of good things going on. Hopefully, I am able to continue doing this on a weekly basis. Like I said in my previous shows, this is still an experiment, but folks are still showing up. You are still watching it, so I will continue doing it. Let me know if you have questions or comments. Please drop them down below. As always, thanks for watching.